Good afternoon and welcome to a Daily Record Sports Special here. I've got a big name in the studio this afternoon to talk to. Someone who's managed Motherwell, Preston North End, Derby County and Nottingham Forest twice. And that's not including his current day job as technical head coach of Morton FC, Mr. Billy Davies. Welcome to Daily Record Sport. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Scott. It's an absolute pleasure to join you and very much looking forward to, as usual, talking football with you and righting all the wrongs in the game at the current time.
That's just my copy you're writing the wrongs on. Some things never change. So how are you keeping?
Scott, keeping very well. I've got to say that delighted, obviously, to be back on the training ground, which is very important. Very thankful to Dougie Imrie and the board of Morton for bringing me back into the game and getting me back involved in video analysis and training sessions and team meetings and all the things that you do, Scott, in a football club as part of a football staff. And I've got to say, there's great people at this club. Dougie's staff is fantastic. One very interesting note, Scott, is that I'm now working beside a young man called John Connolly, who I gave his debut for Motherwell Football Club a very long time ago. So only this afternoon, Scott, is this Mr. Connolly reminding me of all the terrible things that I said to him as a young player. And he's now getting his own back, I can assure you.
Were they accurate?
Well, some of them were accurate, like for example, telling him he should do better. That was very accurate, as you know. Also telling him about his positional play and his kicking. As you know, Scott, he had and still has a wonderful left foot. And it's just great. When I think back, giving young Johnny's debut, I think it was at Tannadice. He's told me 100 times, and I've forgotten already, but I think it was Tannadice. And he claims that I made huge mistakes thereafter, playing people like Stevie Woods and Andy Gorham. So I think he's got it wrong, Scott.
Well, there you go. I'll leave that for an internal argument at Capello rather than for the public airwaves. I wouldn't like to go. I wouldn't like to take a side in this one.
No, I think if I was you, mate, I think I would definitely sit at the side because I'm told by Mr. Connolly that it's a very long season and he's still got a lot of tremendous memories he's going to cast up to me. So, but Scott, I've got to tell you, the staff at the club's magnificent. The board, the people inside the club, they're super friendly. There's a tremendous atmosphere and spirit. Dougie's a great lad to work beside and work with, I've got to say. And of course, all his staff, the academy guys that have come up from the academy that have joined the first team. There's a real good spirit in the place. And the most important part of the day, Scott, is when the manager who thinks he's a supreme darts player, when he challenges people at darts after training. And not only that, he gives out a lot of stick. And he certainly believes, having watched the young lad Littler, he certainly believes he's got a career in darts, which could, I'm telling you, Scott, so far from the truth that this guy's delusional, but he does love a challenge. He's a great lad to work beside.
So apart from his darts, he's all right?
Well, apart from his darts, he's all right. The only other thing I would say to you that, and I've had a word in his ear many a time, because he likes to join in the training. When he joins in the training, he likes to still do these 35-yard slide tackles, Scott, on this AstroTurf pitch. Not only that, when he scores a decent goal or he makes a decent pass, he likes the whole of Greenock to hear him talking about it. And he reminds everybody, Scott, about all this wonderful left foot that he's got and the great player that he was and still is. And I've got to say to you, I have had to have a word in his ear once or twice about his performance and, more importantly, the verbal abuse that he's putting out to these players and the staff members because he's having a good day, I've got to tell you.
Good. You can't keep a good man down, that's what they say. Anyway,
Billy,
with regards to Dougie, how did that come about? Because a lot of eyebrows were raised. You'd been out of football for a long time, and then they obviously saw you come in this technical post at Capello. I mean, a lot of people thought they'd come back, see you back in frontline management in your own right, and then obviously you've gone in to help Dougie. I mean, how did that come about?
I think it was about a year ago, Scott, that I got this call out the blue from the manager of Morton, Dougie Imrie. And Dougie asked me, is there any way that I could come along and meet him for a coffee and sit and have a chat about football and get some advice? And of course, I went and I met Dougie on the very first occasion. The first thing that struck me about this lad was he certainly is a winner. He wants to win. He's driven. He's very passionate. And I've said time and time again, he's very misunderstood because his passion sometimes can be overlooked in relation to the intelligence also that this guy has got. But he asked to meet me, Scott. I met him. We had a great chat. He then called me again a couple of months later. Another great meeting, talked about football, done presentations, talked about tactics and all these other things that you talk about from an experienced player or a manager to a young manager. And then I think that happened about 3 or 4 times. We had great meetings. We had great conversations. We had a lot of really great discussions about the football world and the training and the games and the tactics and all these other things, Scott. And then right out the blue, I get this call from the Morton manager asking me if I would come in and help him out due to, obviously, I think he had lost his assistant manager at that point, a very good assistant manager in Andy Millen. And when Andy left, he asked me to come in and would I come in and help him? And I was delighted to go in and help him because he's a first-class lad and there's no doubt this guy's a winner and he's very passionate.
Did you have to think long and hard about it? Because you've been out a while and you've had opportunities. Obviously, for one reason or another, they haven't been right. But why was this one right, Billy?
Probably timing was right. You know, I was ready to go back onto the grass. And I'll tell you one of the things that I'm so delighted about, Scott, is the fact that when I first went in to help Dougie, I'd been out quite a bit of time and I felt a little bit rusty on the training ground. All the video analysis stuff that I was doing, helping Dougie, the team meetings, all the things that you've got to do as a manager and staff inside the club. And I've got to say, as the days have went by and the weeks have went by, then I find myself now right back on the ball and right back to where I was, if you like, before I went out, really enjoying the training, enjoying the individual sessions that I'm doing with players, also the group sessions that we're doing with the team analysis and the practice matches and all the drills that we've got to do. I've got to say, Scott, I feel as though I'm right back on the ball again and absolutely delighted to be on that training ground with him and helping him out as much as I can.
It's obviously been a long time, but it doesn't seem like, obviously, it's clear that the passion for coaching has not dimmed one bit.
Scott will never go away. Since I've been 6 years of age playing this game, and then moving on in my career when I started to join different clubs in my mid-20s, I get involved in coaching at 28, 22, 23. Although I was a professional footballer, I was thoroughly enjoying going out 3-4 times a week coaching all different levels and all different people, which was a great experience for me. Also doing all my badges very early was very important. And I don't know why, Scott, since I've been very young, particularly at Rangers, 1979, 1980, I can still show you the training sessions that we've done with John Gregg, Tommy McLean, Jock Wallace, Graham Souness, Walter Smith, all of these guys that I'd worked under. I was just a big note taker and I just kept taking notes. The experienced players' advice, I would sit down and write things down if somebody said something. The coaching staff, whenever they done a drill or a session or again gave some advice. And I've got to say, I was always a big student, not only of football, but also a big student of many, many other sports. I love looking at basketball coaches. I love looking at rugby coaches. I love looking at all these people, what they do in their world, in their environment, how they handle the mentality and the psychology and all these things that go along with it. Of course, the training, etc. So I think, Scott, it's always been in my blood. They'll never take it away. I'm delighted to be back on the grass. I'm delighted to be dealing with players. Delighted to be putting on sessions and helping Dougie. And more importantly, preparing the team for a Saturday and watching this young guy work on that touchline and do what he does best.
Have you found him a darts coach yet?
Well, I've been looking at, funny, we spoke about that this afternoon, Scott. We obviously, we really need to look at his, but not only his performance, but his behaviour. He's certainly been abusing one or two staff members in the club, particularly a guy called Mark Kelly, who's a fantastic lad at the club, great Morton fan, does everything at the club. He calls himself Mr. Morton, which I think he is. But Mark and the manager have had, before I come in, this very long-standing, very much a long-standing war going on between the two of them in this darts game, Scott. So you can imagine the banter. We're now in the manager's office. You need to pay for a seat to get in there, Scott, which is even worse. You've got to pay to watch this crap. And I've got to say, it's tremendous spirit, tremendous banter, and all driven by the board and by everyone at the club. It's fantastic.
Good. I mean, going back to Dougie though, I mean, he's done a great job there at Morton and his time there. I mean, it's difficult, and I mean, in terms of budgets, etc., in that league, but Morton have always tended to punch above their weight, haven't they, under Dougie?
Well, you've got to say that when you look at the budget that he's had over the last number of years, and you look at the teams that he's faced, then he's always been up there or thereabouts. Very unfortunate not to get into the top four, but certainly has always just missed out. Very competitive team, very well organised team. And there's no doubt that when you look at it, he's done a fantastic job under very difficult circumstances. This year is obviously different. There's no doubt that there's a tremendous ambition and plan for the club over the next number of years in relation to where we're trying to go, what we're trying to do, and what the situation is. So I've got to say, Scott, he's done a tremendous job under very difficult circumstances. And now we're hoping that over the next number of years, we can take the club to exactly where the board and everybody concerned want to be, which is to try and compete in that Premier League.
Obviously, you say, I mean, they've got plans. I mean, I take it you would have made aware of those plans, Billy, before you came in, and that was part of the reason you went to Morton as well, the ambition behind the scenes. Yeah,
very much so. If you look at the changes that's been made, Scott, there's been a lot of changes to staff and players, and even in and around the club, and there's just all sorts of things taking place. And, you know, my big message to the Morton board and also the manager at the time is that we cannot do a Derby County, which is to get there 2 years too early. The club's not set up to compete in all the different departments. Of course, there is a huge financial gain for the club. This season, we will do all we can to try and get there too early, Scott. We'll always just take it if it happens. But I think it's important to go in there and to be competitive and then to stay there for a very long time. Then my advice to the board was to make sure as we go along, we're not only ready to get promoted, but once we get there, we've got everything in and around the club that's set up. We're all ready to go to compete. We've built it up over a period of time, not only the football squad, also the technical staffing, but right around the club in relation to what has to be done to welcome the Rangers, the Celtics, the Aberdeens and the Hearts, the Hibs, etc., St Mirrens, all these people. We've got to be ready, Scott, and we've got to be ready to be of that quality on and off the pitch to put ourselves into that type of competition.
Well, you're certainly the man to use that phrase, doing a Derby County after you took them into the Premier League against all the odds.
Well, that's what happens. As I said, that was the fool that done it after 11 months into a 3-year plan. And I've got to say that you take it when it comes along, Scott. And what you're looking for thereafter is for appreciation for what you've done. And we know how this industry works. So it was a great experience getting there. There's no doubt about it. Like this season, will we take the top four? Will we take promotion? Absolutely, we'll take it. But looking at it with very sensible eyes, you've got to say, Scott, that you want to make sure that all the right things are in the right place. And when we get there and when we move along, building things, developing players, developing the club, then it'll be a much, much easier task to stay there once you go in. And as you said, unlike Derby, then the 11 months was far too quick. The manager was a fool. Whoever that manager was to take Derby into that Premier League, Scott, he was a fool. He was a fool, Scott. I've got to tell you, he was a fool. 2 years too early. I should have sat mid-table first season. I should have sat mid-table second season. I would have probably got another 5-year contract, and then away you go for the next 7 years. That's what should have happened.
But you're at Morton now, so what? You were a few playoffs. How many playoffs were you involved in? Was it 5?
5 playoffs, 1 automatic promotion. Yeah,
1 automatic promotion. Aye. You know what it means. How we get get out of league sort of thing. So that'll be invaluable to Dougie.
Well, it's important. The most important thing is that I'm here to assist Dougie. Dougie's got to be his own man. And I keep telling him all the time that what I will do is I will advise him or I will give him a recommendation. But at the end of the day, having been a manager, having been an assistant manager, having been a first team coach, having been a youth coach, then I know exactly what it's like, Scott, to be in those shoes. And one of the most important things for me is that Dougie, and I say to him every day, he's a very strong character. That's what he needs. He's a great personality. He's a very strong-minded individual. And what he's got to do is he's got to take advice from the people around him, his staff and people like that. But ultimately, Dougie knows that we respect what his decision is. We respect how he goes along with those decisions. And we will back him no matter what happens.
When you look around the game, he's been in a few seasons. He's done well at Morton. I mean, Dougie seems to be one of the best young up-and-coming managers in the country. Is that accurate? Is that fair?
Well, you look at he's currently, I think, in the championship in Scotland, Scottish Championship. I think he sits at the top of the table for the longest-serving manager. Even that in itself, Scott, is a tremendous accolade. When you look at his win percentage, it's excellent. When you look at what he's done over the years, as I said, under difficult circumstances, when things were very tight at the club. And of course, you've got to say that looking at the job that he's done and how he's worked and where he's been, you look at his games, you look at his win percentages, then there's no doubt that this lad's on a very, very good career path. And at some point, he will get that next opportunity to manage a big club.
Just still to stay with Dougie, sadly, we had the events earlier this season with him and Lauren. Obviously, we're deeply touched with everything that happened, a really sad event. But the fact is, I mean, he showed great strength through that as well. It's such a difficult time for any parent, isn't it?
Well, it was horrendous. I've got to say that the whole process of what took place and, you know, what we had to deal with, what the family had to deal with, what Dougie had to deal with, and missing training sessions and looking after his family, going up to hospitals and taking care of his wife and all these other family members. I've got to say that it was just a horrific situation. And, you know, there's no doubt that it was a difficult period, difficult for everybody. But, you know, as you said there, Scott, the strength of this guy, the character of this guy, to be able to handle what he handled, it's just incredible. Then, of course, you look at the amount of money that the family have now made for the charity. An incredible amount. I think it's the last time I looked, it was running about the £18,000 mark, Scott, which is just incredible. What Dougie and Lauren and the family have done, and to handle that whole situation, then it was tremendous. It was really a tremendously difficult situation, and you know, we just had to all roll up our sleeves and stick together and do the best we could through very difficult circumstances.
Good. No, that was a lot of money raised. It's a great effort from them both, Lauren and Dougie. So that was good. So just finally on the Morton note, then, it's been a decent run so far in the league. You mean one defeat? But well, I think a lot of draws though. If you said considering in draws and the wins.
Yeah. There's one defeat in 10, and also there's one win in 10. But more importantly, I think, without making excuses, he's been very unfortunate with refereeing decisions. I think he's now had 4 apologies from the top brass in the refereeing world regarding the points that he's lost and the points he should have got. We're a bit unfortunate on Saturday. Didn't play well on the day against Thistle. Thistle were the better side. But certainly to lose a goal in the 94th minute by our own poor defending is very disappointing. But overall, I've got to say, Scott, you look at the team, you look at the age of the team, it's a very young team. You look at how late people have come into the club. You look at how late his staff have come into the club as well. So this is a guy that's just developing Morton Football Club and has had to do that in a very late situation with players and with staff. And then, of course, his own personal situation, missing a whole range of preparation and training sessions and games, etc. That didn't help. So I think all in all, performance-wise over the 10, there's been a lot of good performances. We have been very unfortunate in games with clear-cut, poor refereeing decisions, which is not an excuse, just a fact. And what I said to Dougie, what I like is the reaction of the players. He's got a tremendous work ethic from these group of players. They clearly are enjoying their work, which is very important. And I'm sure as we go along, this team will get stronger and stronger, and we'll start to pick up the 3 points that we thoroughly deserve to pick up over the last 10 games.
This is obviously you've dropped down to the Championship, but it's a competitive league. There's some big name managers there as well now. You know, it really is. And there's been a lot of money being spent at that level as well.
Well, that's a good thing. I think this season, I think we can all agree, Scott, that this is probably the hardest season in the Scottish Championship than it has been for a number of years. When you look at all of the teams, as you said, and all of the money that's getting spent in these teams, then you've got to say that we're still in the bottom half in relation to competition against these big clubs like the Ayr Uniteds, the Dunfermlines, the Partick Thistles, the Ross Counties, the St Johnstones, and all these other great clubs that are in there, Scott. There's a lot of big clubs, a lot of big experience, Premier League players that have dropped down, Premier League experience, which is also very valuable, get into the Scottish Championship. But very tough league, very exciting league this season. Excellent competition, difficult matches to win. But it's a good test for Dougie and his staff and players, and we're all very much looking forward to it.
You've already semi-answered this, but what is the goal for Morton this year?
Well, I think the goal has to be, we're going to have a right go at trying to get into that top four. Dougie's just missed out over the last number of years, and very unfortunate that he missed out. Unlucky as well, I'm told. So I think this year, Scott, we've all agreed that we would all like to get to that top four and try and compete at that position of the table. Over and above that, we know that we've got to put our sensible hat on and realise that are we ready to go to the Premier League this season? And I'm now talking about infrastructure of club. I'm now talking about depth of squad, size of staffing, you know, all of these things that we've got to look at, and we've got to assess that. Are we ready? That's the question. Is it too early for this club? It's not too early for the manager and his staff and players and the board. We will all give it a right go. But put a sensible hat on, Scott. There's still a lot of work to be done and a lot of things that need to be put in place. But that doesn't stop us rolling our sleeves up and having a right go.